sitting with Gerry on the left and George on the right. George is my Portuguese friend, except when he gets stuck in the mud. Then he becomes Afrikaans. Hello, boys. How's it going?
Hey, fine.
Cool, man. You guys have just come back. Well, when I say just, at the end of last year, you did quite an epic trip. Tell us a little bit about it. George, you can start because I can see you over-eager about this.
Yeah, no, it was super exciting. It was a lot of emotions, this trip. Initially, it was like, what have we got ourselves into?
No, hold on. Start at the beginning. Where did you go?
Where did we go? We went to the Himalayas. We went over the Himalayas. So it was quite an epic trip. We wanted to go to the highest drivable road in the world. So that was the goal. And it took us about 14 days to get there. So it was a nice trip. It was 2 weeks. We deliberately went this way because you got time to acclimatize. So you didn't get too sick with the altitude or anything.
All right. Well, Gerry, talk us through it. Yeah. Start at the beginning. You flew from Jan Smuts, OR Tambo 2.
So we flew from here to Delhi.
Yeah.
And arriving there, we had a day open. So we decided to just go and see. Well, we wanted to see Delhi. So we went and decided we'd rather go to the Taj Mahal, which is about an hour's drive from there, to be able to see that and then come back. And then our trip started the next day with a 22-hour bus trip.
Oh, that sounds...
Just get us into the mood.
Okay, we'll talk about the bus now. Tell us a little bit about Delhi. I've heard mixed reports. I believe it's absolutely manic. Is that the right way to put it, George?
I call it chaos. It's just the noise is overwhelming. The smells. It's overwhelming, Delhi.
And busy. We put some pictures up. I'll put some pictures up. 3 up on motorbikes is not uncommon.
Yeah. And then you're driving a tuk-tuk, just doing a U-turn on a 6-lane road. Yeah, everybody hooting to overtake somebody. If you're from behind, you hoot, and then you're allowed to take over and just pass anywhere. On a 3-lane highway, there's 6 people at any time driving. You get back to South Africa and you actually appreciate that roads.
And we complain here, eh?
When I got back and I got in the car and it was quiet, it was just like a surreal experience.
Yeah.
After all that overload, it was crazy.
And tell us about the sacred cows. We were chatting about that earlier.
All over. It's, they sleep on bridges. You come around a corner and there's a cow in the middle of the road. It keeps you on your toes. They're everywhere.
Yeah,
unreal.
Even on the highways, they're in the fast lane and everybody just stops, passes around them, and they're allowed right of way. It's the cows first, and then everybody else comes second.
Chaos. Okay, right. Taj Mahal, is it as spectacular as everybody's told me?
It's amazing. It is really something if you can, you must go see.
It's one of the 7 wonders of the world, isn't it?
Yes. It's a bit of a drive out of Delhi. It's about 3 hours out of Delhi, but it's well worth the trip. It's a day drive. So you leave early in the morning, go do the Taj Mahal, do the Red Fort. Amazing, the history, the story around it, the love story around it. I didn't know any of the history. Amazing, well worth it.
Yeah, and I think specifically also if you go into the design and everything being symmetrical and fitting into each other and getting the history behind it, and actually part of the sad story of how everything came about, it is something to experience, specifically if you're going to India.
I'm going to have to look it up because I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. I'll look it up. Yeah.
We took a guide and he looks after you, but he gives you the whole history, the background. It's well worth it. Yeah. Not that expensive, well worth it.
Because everyone I know who's been there, they've just looked at it and said, well, that's cool, but they don't know much about it.
The story, I mean, I never knew about a black Taj Mahal until, the guy tells you the story around the black Taj Mahal. Everybody talks about the white Taj Mahal. That's that kind of story. I'll leave it for you guys to go and see it.
I'll go and have a look. Guys, you tell me that you booked this tour through an outfit in India. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Okay, so we did a little bit of homework, looked at a couple of companies, and the one we chose starts the ride in Manali, which is at a lower altitude, and it's 2 weeks. So you can do it in a week, but it's quite a hectic ride, and especially if you get altitude sickness. So we went with a company in India called Ride the Himalayas. We had Raul looking after us. Amazing. The guys were really, we never went hungry, never went thirsty, anything. They really looked after us very well.
Well, Gerry, let me ask you this. Now that you've been and done it, would you go solo again, or would you book through someone?
I think it's worthwhile paying the extra to go through a local travel guide, specifically with the road conditions, the interlinking transport you need to organize, and then all the the accesses you need, because you're so close to the Chinese border. There's a lot of permits and that you need to get, and it being like Africa, you need special permission and special ways to get through there. The guy's only speaking Indian, and as a local, you really, or as a
non-local, yeah,
you'll really struggle to actually get around and know where to go. And if you go on one of the roads and you don't have your permits there, it's the military's everywhere, so you don't want to end up in a jail there on the border of China.
Because you won't get the lekker curry that you guys had for lunch every day.
It's more than that. You know, the Himalayas is remote. It's rough. It's changing all the time. You know, there's landslides all the time. So it's unpredictable. You know, we were going to stay in one place, you can't get there, and if the alternative route, you're talking 17 hours non-stop, you know.
So without someone who knows the terrain, you're going to end up in trouble.
You know.
Okay, so tell us a little bit further. From Delhi, 20-hour trip, did you say, on a bus? Yeah. And I imagine the bus was luxury air-conditioned travel.
It was okay. The bus was decent. It was supposed to be 11 hours, but again, landslide, bus pulls over on the side of the road.
Yeah, and we had the one bus that we started with the trip broke down. So halfway through, we had to wait for 2 hours. They got a replacement bus, but it's exactly those kind of things. If you were local there, you booked a local trip, you broke down, you would have sat there for 5, 6, 10 hours, nothing happening.
I'm a ride off someone else,
Yeah, you had a backup. They organized it. You knew, okay, it took 22 hours instead of 11, but we got to our destination. They'd already changed the booking for our accommodation. So it just gives you peace of mind in a country where you literally don't know what's going on.
All right, tell us a little bit about, so on your 20-hour trip, I'm not going to hold you to the names exactly because I'll have to write them down and spell them properly, which is going to be good fun. Your 20-hour trip took you up into the foothills of the Himalayas. What sort of altitude are we talking there?
3,400 meters where we started.
Okay, 3,400 meters above sea level, bearing in mind Joburg is at 1,500.
Yep.
Okay, now we were talking earlier, altitude really is a thing. Tell us a little bit about your American friend.
Yeah, so we met Don, quite a character.
Don the underpants man.
Mr. Underpants.
I owe him a lot.
He shared, okay, just to fit everybody in, he shared his underpants with George, that's as far as we're going. George is a married man, and he lost his trousers during a landslide. You won't believe it. The backup vehicle had his trousers in the back, and it was 2 days catching up with them. So he wandered around in his underpants. How does that sound?
We helped each other. It was a good trip.
Yeah, but he had a serious problem with altitude.
Yes. So halfway through the trip, he actually had to be transported to a hospital. We ended up staying for a week, and the transport, you're talking 7 hours to get to the first hospital, and then from there to be transported to the secondary hospital. It was another 7 hours in a little taxi that's yeah.
Well,
there's something to.
There's a photo here. I'll put it up, but it's those tiny little Suzuki taxis, and he was in there with his oxygen bottle and his oxygen tank, and off he went down the Indian roads.
And the stories he tells you about the hospital as well, I can leave for Don to tell, but it's like, you don't want to be on your own there and get hurt or anything.
So there we go, guys. That's the importance of a tour guide setup, and I guess it's the same to be said in lots of places you go to. Yes. Local knowledge is super important. Tell us, okay, motorcycle. So you spent a day to acclimatize at your, let's call it your base camp, 3,500 feet. Tell us a little bit about all of that, please.
So when we arrived there, it's a real nice hotel. We then got to choose our motorbikes. They were set up. There was a set of Royal Enfields, the Himalayas, waiting there for us, and you could go through and choose your bike. And quite a nice thing of the tour operator as well, you got your own windscreen, the visor, and it had your name on, and you could put it on. That would be your bike for half of the trip. And it was quite an experience to drive those motorbikes for the first time, because it's the weight of a GS 1200 with the power of a 250cc. And the technology of a 1960s bike.
So it's a Kanidut, built for India.
Exactly. It's almost like the KLRs, if you need to go somewhere and anybody can fix it, I think that's exactly it. It's not a brilliant bike for that environment. Yeah. It was exactly right. On any bigger bike, you would have killed yourself because you'd be tempted to go too fast.
Yeah.
And the road conditions doesn't allow it.
Well, George, these were little 400s, and you've ridden with us for years, and I know you've ridden a lot of big bikes as well. Do you agree with what he says? It's the right size?
Actually, Raoul, the tour guide, asked us if we would have preferred a bigger bike, like an 800 GS or something, and I told him no way. It's not on those roads. The conditions, these roads are all single lane. You're doing mountain passes. You're on the side of a cliff. There's no barriers. And it's a single lane and it's two-way. You don't want to be going fast on these roads. Never mind potholes and, I think it was right. If I'll do it again, definitely I'll do it on the same bike.
Okay, lads, how many kilometers did you ride? What was the total distance here?
So in total, we did about 2,800 kilometers in the 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
And it was about 100 to 200 kilometers per day. And it sounds not a lot, but for those conditions, it literally took you 8 hours every day of hard riding. With that altitude, that 400 becomes a 150.
First and second gear. First and second gear. Sometimes third gear.
Yes, if you're lucky downhill, you get into third. And going up some of the passes, we're heading towards 5,000 meters above sea level. You literally, the one pass we went to, it was between first and second. If you're going around the hairpin, you're in first. Going further up, it's second, and then back to first again. And you're wringing the neck out of that little bike. You can hear it wheezing and coughing and
it's funny, I
struggling.
could remember on the one gutter loops, I could hear his bike behind me. He was just right on the limits of the whole
Pinking
time.
the whole way.
But it had obviously a weight disadvantage, his bike.
Yeah, a slight weight disadvantage.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the roads you traveled. I mean, what was the percentage of tar versus off-road gravel? And gravel is a very broad term. You've shown me pictures riding through desert sand.
Yes, yeah. So I would say it was about maybe 30-40% tar. The rest was either broken tar or gravel. So the roads we traveled were very close to the China-India border. So it's only maintained for the military, no other purpose. So it's not, people go to that road and that's to get to the highest road. So there's not a lot of traffic up there. And then, like I said, these mountains are just constantly eroding and just they very sharp peaks. So the roads are constantly getting washed away, and there's a lot of gravel.
And rock falls is a real issue.
Well, you showed us a video earlier. We're gonna. Hopefully, I can superimpose it onto this a little bit. Please, you need to send me that. These guys are riding along. Tell us about the whistles. That sounds amazing.
So we got to the road closure.
What was the road called? Sorry about that.
It was the road to Sangrila.
Sangrila, okay.
To Sangrila.
Okay.
So we got there and we were delayed for 4 hours where there was a landslide the previous night, and they had the TLBs in there clearing up the road. And once the road was what they called open,
they said it was
single
open.
lane, they would have a traffic officer at the bottom and a traffic officer at the top, and the one guy would blow a whistle and one of you could go and ride. And as soon as you hear the whistle going, beep, you knew something was happening. And riding there, you knew it was just a landslide, so you were expecting some rocks to fall and that. So you were wringing the neck out of a little Himalayan.
Just to get through.
Just to get through. And now you're riding on, it's wet, it's slippery. You don't know where the rocks are coming from. You're just praying that you're making it through. And afterwards we heard that one of the reasons they only put you through one is that if one guy gets lost to the elements, then it's fine. It's acceptable.
Well, it's not fine, but it's better than 2 or 3.
And that's just, they just shrug their shoulders, and that is what it's all about.
And they accept it. It's like you can easily wait 12, 24 hours for a landslide to get cleared. It's just different.
And I mean, we had the first-hand experience where we made it through that pass. Our backup vehicles didn't, and George had to borrow some underwear from Don, who gracefully applied.
These are where lifetime friendships are forged. Let me just do this. Guys, tell us about your overnight facilities. Where did you sleep? Tell us about the food that you ate for the duration. I believe you are allergic to curry as of right now. And tell us a little bit about some of the ablution facility, because I'm seriously considering taking my wife across.
Okay, so Raoul made one promise. He said he would get us the best possible accommodation on the trip, and that he did do. But the best is, it's relatively speaking. So if you weren't in a two-man tent, then we were in a luxury Swiss tent, and then occasionally we were able to get into like hotels. But very, very basic, especially when you start going to the remote areas, very basic.
And I think one thing that stood out for us is sharing a double bed with your best friend.
No, don't go there.
Who borrowed another man's underpants.
While your best friend borrowed another man's underpants.
Yeah.
But most of the places, yes, they don't understand that twin sharing is two separate beds.
Absolutely.
You get one bed, and you had to share that, as that was the best accommodation available.
So take a buddy with who doesn't snore. That's the biggest thing. And I bet you were mighty grateful for those beds after 8 hours on the road.
Tell you what, even the food after some of those trips, the cold and everything, it's like after the one peak, I was frozen. That curry I had was the best curry I've had in my life.
It warmed up all ends, which was great. You were talking about the cold, and one of the roads was the highest navigable road in the world. Is that right?
Right.
And you were talking about how you had sand in your blankets. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's one of the Swiss. So they've got these temporary Swiss camps that they put up, or Swiss tents they put up. It's a temporary town.
It's a temporary town, only up there for 6 months of the year.
Yes,
is that right?
During the summer, it's for the travellers.
Okay.
Before the snow comes.
Yeah. So if you're hiking there, you'd stay there, or if you're biking, and in winter, because it's unlivable in those conditions, they actually deconstruct the whole camp and they take it down, and then next summer they'll come back up and reinstall it. So the accommodation there is very basic. They call it Swiss tents, but it's not like we know the Swiss tents. It's a basic tent, and your bed is a single bed with a very thick blanket. And specifically this one night where it's going to the highest motorable road in the world, you sleep with a blanket that's filled with I think it's sand. And
very heavy blanket.
Yeah, you actually struggle to sleep because it's a combination of you're struggling to breathe as is because of the altitude, and then you have this thick blanket on top of you, and you need that to keep you warm, because it is sub-zero temperatures. So it is interesting. And then specifically having to shower, or what we call washing yourself, is very challenging, because you're using glacier water, and it is.
Well, I'll post a picture of the shower. We'll put that up. Tell us a little bit about the ablution facilities. You all said it's fairly interesting. Don't hold back.
No, it's the Swiss tents have got temporary toilets which are just placed on the ground. You can see the photos, and then obviously when you're camping, it's a hole in the ground.
And they're not bolted in, guys.
No, so
you can't have any Singer beer and go and sit on your.
Carefully.
Even not inebriated, you need to sit down, and you feel like you're balancing on your motorbike because it's wiggling underneath you the whole time. So it is very interesting. And then some of the restaurants, the hole in the ground they have there, they don't cater for our length of people. So you're bending over, praying that you're not falling into the log drop.
And that you're aiming straight. That's the important thing.
That's the most important thing. So yes, it's not very.
Well, it's a shift of culture.
Friendly.
That's it. It's a total shift of culture.
It changes your mindset, and
you accept it because that is what it is. Oh, that's interesting, guys. Now tell me about the trip itself. I mean, 2.5 weeks, paradise. Tell me a little bit about it, please.
Himalayas is just something amazing. The altitude, the change in the scenery, the environment. As soon as you start going higher in altitude, everything changes. The colors is different. It's the pinks, it's the purples, and it's open and it's quiet. It's really, really vast. Yeah. You drive for hours before you see another little village.
Yeah. You don't understand the remoteness, and you're feeling you're almost in Switzerland with the high mountains and the rivers going past, and then you get to a different place where it's all of a sudden desert, and then So the contrast in the environment is just something to experience. It is a bucket list thing you have to do. If you ever
enjoy bikes and corners, hairpin bends. If you enjoy hairpin bends, that's a place to go. There's just hundreds and hundreds of hairpin bends. You could do like 20, 30 in the space of 20 minutes. It's like just
unreal.
Yeah.
So guys, you flew into the capital and then you took your bus trip. Where did you fly out from? Just to give us a rough idea.
So the trip ended in a town called Lay, which is about 3,700 meters above sea level. So you have to pack all your gear in and get to a weight restriction of 15 kilos. So we ended
for the entire duration.
Yes, for the flight.
Okay.
For the flight back. So
because of the altitude.
Because the planes also
of course.
Planes from there. Unless you can book business class, which we only learned afterwards. So
well,
you saved yourself a few shekels, sir.
Yes, well, but you should have seen us going there. So to fit into 15 kilos, we were wearing 4 jackets, your riding gear, and that's in a 30-degree environment. And then when you get there, because it's high security, you have to you basically strip searched. So you have to take off everything. You have to strip down everything, take off your boots, put it back on to get onto the plane to get back to Delhi from where we flew back to South Africa. So that was quite a challenging flight, having to sit with your full gear there for 45 minutes.
To give you an idea, I weighed my luggage was 28 kilos. And I eventually got my bag down to 15 kilos.
And you were wearing the rest?
I was either wearing it or carrying it inside my helmet.
Including your buddies' underpants?
Yeah, that's fine now.
Guys, tell us a little bit about, your tour guides. You mentioned you had a few punctures and a few little breakdowns. They are hands-on. They know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, the guys really look after us. They kept us hydrated. They're constantly feeding us fluids. They're giving us electrolytes. If your bike broke down, one of the guys, there was 4 guys on bikes and there was 2 backup vehicles. If you got a puncture or something, you pull over, one of the guys would come, swap bikes with you, you carry on with the group. Backup vehicle would sort out the puncture, they'll catch up later. So it was seamless. Any issue, the guys, it was amazing.
Absolutely brilliant, man.
And in that environment, it's exactly what you needed, because it is remote. If you get a puncture there and you don't have backup, you will be stuck there for weeks. And I think that's why it's imperative. Looking back at it, we wouldn't have done it any other way. Traveling through Africa, you think solo, you can do it and that. But I think India, specifically because of the logistics, it is something in hindsight. We thought, you go back and you do it on your own. If we have to go back, definitely we'll do it through a tour group again. Yeah,
we passed 2 South Africans also doing it. They were doing it on their own on 350.
Yes.
But I mean, then you need quite a period. You need. It's not like us, you got a job to come back to. So 2 weeks was kind of like pushing it. If you've got like a month or so, then you can really try plan it. But it's tough.
No, brilliant. Tell me about the people in general. Everybody happy and friendly to see you. And the other thing I'm going to ask you about is, I've heard horror stories about all the litter and stuff lying around. Tell us a little bit about what you saw while you were over there.
People extremely friendly, but again, very little English. So when you're in the remote areas, nobody talks English. It's just Hindu. So again, it's important that, with the guides, they help you out with all that kind of stuff. But the people, very friendly, but very basic. It's really, it's the basics. There's no luxuries, there's no cappuccinos, there's none of that stuff.
You drank lots of tea, I believe.
Oh yes, masala tea for breakfast, lunch, dinner. And at the highest restaurant in the world, I was introduced to ginger, honey and lemon tea, which is absolutely amazing.
Because you had a cold, that's right, so they thought they'd doctor you. That's what we drink here when we're sick.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Kelly didn't enjoy it so much.
But I think the one thing there that also stood out was the food there is, when you go and travel, most of the places you get some kind of westernized food.
Yeah.
There it is curry or curry. And no matter where you go, for the remote places, they don't know of anything else. It's, you grow up and for 18 years of your life, if you're 18 years old, you've eaten curry for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Well, we braai. What's the problem?
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah, but we can buy lots of different things. That's the difference.
There's lots of add-ons. There you have 3 different types of.
The other interesting thing is that it's a vegetarian country.
Oh, wow.
No, so it's everything is a lot of it's plant-based. So you get chicken.
So you had no meat the whole time you were
we
there?
had chicken. There's a lot of chicken. There's some pork, but it's not common. So if you really go out into the rural areas, it's less common. It's mainly vegetarian.
Okay.
Which we didn't know, but it's all got curry.
Yeah. And the meat there's as well. It's very, for them it's a luxury.
Yes.
And I think for us, coming from a rich South African Indian background, we were spoiled in our butter chicken being boneless.
Yeah.
They take a chicken and chop it up, and whatever piece you get, if it's a piece of bone, if it's a piece of breast, that's what you get with the skin on, with the everything on.
Brilliant.
That's what you get. And they were happy with it. And I think
it was good. Food was alright, eh?
Good. Well, you don't look like you've lost much weight, and you look, you know, as long as you're well fed. So, boys, I know that India has a massive bike culture, especially when it comes to the smaller kind of entry-level commuter bikes. Tell us a little bit about all of that.
They're everywhere. They transporters. They carry 3-4 people on a bike, no problem there. And it's all small CCs. It's 300s and smaller.
Yeah, I think the infrastructure there doesn't allow you to go over 80.
Yep.
So that's also why there's no real.
Which is probably a really good thing, listening to the
really
traffic
good.
conditions.
We saw one accident on the bike in front of us,
and
expected to see many more, didn't. But I think it's because the speeds are so slow.
Yes.
Yeah.
The road infrastructure doesn't allow you to go over 80.
Yeah.
And I think for us there, what we saw is the Royal Enfields is really, it's everywhere. Everywhere you go, that is the go-to bike in India. And I think it's because it's a local bike, it's manufactured there. It's a basic bike, but you can get spares everywhere.
And it's been there forever, so people know how to fix it.
You pick it up and you go. I know, I dropped mine a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's like a tank. Yeah, it just keeps going. It's a basic bike, no fancy stuff, but it just keeps on going. It puts along.
But what else did you see? I think KTM's got a factory over there. Did you see many KTMs?
310s, yes, we saw quite a few 310s.
Yeah, so the
390s.
390s.
Yeah, we saw a few GS 310s, but the second most popular bike there must be the 390, and you can see them specifically on the local side, where they would do the similar trip that what we did. We see guys that taking off a year and they're just traveling, and we met a few of the guys along the same route we did. They would do either the Royal Enfields, or if they a little bit more upmarket, they would get the 390s, which is a very capable bike specific for that environment.
No, we know they're good. They are good.
Some of the tour companies had Triumph 900s. We saw quite a few Triumphs.
Okay, that's interesting.
That was in the Himalayas, not so much in the cities, but they're obviously catering for guys from overseas that want something a bit bigger. So we saw Triumph 900s.
But once again, you guys say it's actually not worth your while having a more powerful bike.
I would be scared riding it there, because the temptation would be, I'm going to take this corner, and then you're coming around and there's a 20-ton truck coming from the front on the wrong side of the road. So that is this kind of stuff you need to cater for. And I think that's why specifically if you're doing that trip, you have to do it on a Royal Enfield. It's part of the experience.
It's part of the environment, 100%. Now tell me, you went off to a bike market and you said it blew your mind.
So in Delhi, there's one that's called the Carol Bar Bike Market. And if you're a bike fanatic, you have to go past there. But it's chaos. It's absolute chaos. It's just blocks and blocks of these little alleyways, and they make everything you can dream of for bikes, except not more than a 390 KTM. So if you're looking for 890 spares like Hedy, you're going to find nothing. But it's just, you'll see some of the photos. It's absolute mayhem. It's just motorbikes on top of motorbikes on top of motorbikes, thousands, and it's these like 3 or 4 city blocks. They make everything.
Well, that alone would make me go and visit. I'd love to go and see something like that.
You buy indicators in packets of 50.
And cheap as chips.
You can't believe it. It's just, everything is made in these little shops there in the back. So you'll find a little shop in an alleyway that will just make accelerator cables for bikes, and they just make that, and there's just bundles and bundles of accelerator cables.
Just
and
that's
they
something
pack
to
them
go
and
see.
then they ship them probably around the world.
Yeah, and then the shipping is also a guy coming in on a Pasola with 1,000 of these cables on the bike, and off he goes to go and post it to wherever they sell it to. So it is definitely an experience. You go down this alley, and this alley just sells indicators. The next alley just sells brakes. So it is
horns and lights and everything. And you can get mag wheels for your tuk-tuks there. It's like, it's crazy, you know, unreal.
Brilliant. It's like another planet, eh?
And it is absolutely amazing.
And you know what else strikes you? The ingenuity that they can make this stuff. Crash bars for KTMs. There's piles and piles. The guys are making them in this little stall and powder coating them orange, and then off they go and end up on somebody's KTM somewhere else around the world. It's unreal.
That's amazing. So guys, if you've got the travel bag, these two boys have done it. India is worth a visit, boys.
Himalayas.
Yes. Himalayas, definitely.
Himalayas, definitely. It was on our bucket list. We planned for it for 2 years. And I think it's something we will never regret doing. It's definitely up there on one of the trips you have to do if you're a bike enthusiast.
It's Spiti Valley, man, on a bike. It's unreal. It's an awesome road.
Mongolian plain.
Tibetan plain.
Tibetan plain, sorry. See, I did pay attention. I pay attention all the time.
Yeah, curves, gutter loops, which is a pass. It's just hairpin after hairpin after hairpin. Unreal. It's an experience on a bike.
Oh, that's brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for your time. We'll try and post up some videos. I'm going to get a lot more photos from these guys, and you can read about their trip. We'll have it up in Dirt and Trail in the next couple of days. Have a look. We want to go to the Himalayas. Cost, boys. Let's talk the money.
I would budget 100 grand if you want to do
100 grand for 2 weeks.
It was 3 weeks in total.
18 days.
Because we did Delhi, we went to see the Taj Mahal, you know.
And that includes your airfares.
Everything.
It sounds like a good value proposition.
If you go with a company like we did, Ride the Himalayas, they're really set up. You don't have to take food with you. You don't have to take anything with you. They look after
you. They take the pain out of the whole thing.
Yeah, and then from our perspective, we were also very skittish in not taking out insurance. So that includes your travel insurance and your motorbike insurance there, because they don't really have insurance. But we just wanted peace of mind that if you drop your bike over the side of the Himalayas, that's also covered.
You covered, yeah. That's it. That makes good sense. Guys, perfect. I'll post their details at the bottom of this. Thank you so much for your time. Sounds like an awesome adventure.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks.